I had 30 seconds before the espresso martinis reached table 9, and the red laser dot found his skull. The folded napkin in my apron pocket felt like it was burning through the fabric. My handwriting on it, "She's going to kill you," smeared where my thumb had pressed too hard, turning the ballpoint ink into an accusation I couldn't take back. Around me, the obsidian room pulsed with the kind of money that didn't need to announce itself. Low jazz. The clink of baccarat crystal. Murmured Korean and English blending into a lingua franca of power. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan's skyline cut sharp against the winter night. But inside, everything was velvet shadows and amber light, the kind of warmth that suffocates. I crossed the black marble floor toward table 9 like I was walking the plank. Park Jun-suk sat with his back to the glass, 50 stories of city sprawling behind him like he owned every light, every street, every soul. He looked like violence wrapped in Brioni tailoring. Severe cheekbones. Black hair swept back with the kind of precision that suggested a man who controlled everything, including entropy. His hands rested on the ebony table, fingers interlaced, utterly still. A predator conserving energy. Beside him, Yoon Hae-rin adjusted the strap of her white door gown, leaning close to whisper something that made his mouth twitch. Not quite a smile, but close. Her hair fell like a silk curtain, diamond hairpins catching the candlelight and scattering it across his face like stars. She looked like a bride already. She was dressed for a funeral. 18 minutes ago, I heard her order his execution. The obsidian room's coat check wasn't really a coat check. It was a soundproofed alcove tucked behind the bar. All black lacquer and recessed lighting, where the staff stashed designer overcoats that cost more than my car. I'd been hanging a client's mink when I heard voices, female, clipped, speaking rapid Korean. I froze, half hidden behind a wall of cashmere and fur, my fingers still gripping the velvet hanger. Union Jagia Mahabyan Taiburi Isioyo. He's at table 9 now. My Korean was survival level at best, enough to know when someone wanted their steak rare versus well done. But I caught fragments. Table 9. The glass wall. Jumbi Dwesio. Ready. Juljiaksuga Barizio Han Mayong. Jui Bange Se Mayong. One shooter at the bar, 3 positioned around the room. Then she switched. Her voice dropped into Russian, sharp, guttural, wrapping consonants around something that sounded like coordinates. Like she was calling in an airstrike on the man sitting 20 feet away. I should have coughed, announced myself, played the oblivious waitress. Instead, I pressed myself deeper into the shadows and listened as my heart tried to punch through my ribs. Sipbun Dwai. Guaga Kiopirul Mazel Te. 10 minutes. When he drinks his coffee, the mink coat in my hand suddenly weighed 1,000 pounds. Kekikuthan shot. Miorirul Jayanyang Hara. Clean shot. Aim for the head. Her heels clicked against the marble, moving toward the dining room. I held my breath, counting the seconds, praying she wouldn't glance back. When the footsteps faded, I exhaled and my hands were shaking so badly, I had to brace them against the wall. That's when I grabbed the napkin. Scribbled the warning. Stupid, reckless, but the only thing I could think to do. Now I was 3 tables away. The tray of espresso martinis balanced on my palm, and I could see Hae-rin checking her watch. A signal. The bartender, a man I'd worked beside for 6 months, adjusted his cufflinks and his eyes tracked to the windows. 2 tables away. Through the kitchen doors I caught movement. 3 men in server uniforms I didn't recognize. Their hands weren't carrying plates. 1 table away. Jun-suk lifted his water glass, and for a split second, his eyes met mine. Dark. Unreadable. Like staring into deep water. I opened my mouth to scream. The first bullet shattered the window behind his head. Before we get deep into the story, please let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Hit subscribe if you're hooked in and ready to enjoy this story. Because tomorrow, I have another beautiful story to share with you and I don't want you to miss it for anything. Now let's get into story. The glass exploded inward like a frozen waterfall collapsing, and suddenly the world was nothing but screaming and the wet crunch of safety glass under designer heels. The tray flew from my hands. Espresso martinis painted the marble floor in dark arcs that looked too much like blood. Jun-suk moved. Not away from the window. Toward me. His hand clamped around my wrist with enough force to grind bone. And then I was airborne, yanked behind the marble column that separated table 9 from table 10. My shoulder slammed into the stone and the air punched out of my lungs. Down. His voice was granite. Not loud. He didn't need loud. I dropped. He dropped with me, using his body as a shield, and I could feel his heartbeat against my spine. Steady, unhurried, like being shot at was a mild inconvenience. Another bullet sparked off the column inches from my head, and I bit down on my scream hard enough to taste copper. The obsidian room had become a war zone. Diners overturned tables. Someone's date night tiramisu smeared across white tablecloths that would never be white again. The jazz music was still playing, some cruel algorithm that hadn't registered the chaos. A saxophone crooning over the percussion of gunfire. Through the forest of overturned chairs, I saw Hayrin. She was standing, just standing in the center of the massacre, her white dress pristine, her phone pressed to her ear. She wasn't running, wasn't even crouching. Her eyes swept the room like a general surveying a battlefield, and when they landed on our column, on Jun-suk's shoulder visible above the marble edge, something flickered across her face. Not fear. Disappointment. She turned, heels clicking with metronomic precision, and walked toward the kitchen exit like she was leaving brunch. I started. I know. Jun-suk's grip shifted to the back of my neck, forcing my head down as another volley of bullets chewed through the leather booth behind us. The bartender. Where? What? The bartender you keep looking at. Where? My brain stuttered. How did he? 3 o'clock. Behind the bar. I didn't know why I answered. Survival instinct. The same reason rabbits freeze when the hawk's shadow passes overhead. Jun-suk's free hand moved to his jacket. When it reappeared, there was a gun in it. Matte black. Compact. He didn't aim. Didn't even look. Just angled the barrel around the column and fired twice. The gunfire from the bar stopped. The kitchen, he said, already moving. His hand was still on my neck and I didn't have a choice. He pulled me with him like I was luggage, staying low, using the overturned tables as cover. My knees hit broken glass and I felt the sting but couldn't process pain. Couldn't process anything except the iron grip dragging me toward the service corridor. We burst through the service door and into the hallway that connected the dining room to the loading dock. Fluorescent lights. Concrete floors. The smell of garbage and bleach. The sounds from the dining room muffled into distant pops, like fireworks several streets away. Jun-suk released me and I stumbled, catching myself against the wall. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. I looked down and saw blood on my uniform. Splatter, not mine, someone else's, and my stomach lurched. You tried to warn me. He wasn't asking. He pulled out my crumpled napkin. She's going to kill you. And unfolded it with the kind of care someone might use on a legal document. When did you write this? Does it matter? She's gone. She just walked out. And you're bleeding and there are dead people. When? 20 minutes ago. I heard her. In the code check. The words tumbled out. She was speaking Korean and Russian, and I didn't understand most of it, but I understood enough. She said 10 minutes and clean shot, and aim for your head. You were 3 seconds too late. It wasn't an accusation, just a fact. He refolded the napkin and tucked it back into his jacket, preserving my warning like it was something valuable. Down the hallway a door slammed. Men's voices. Heavy footsteps. Jun-suk's hand found my wrist again. How well do you know the loading dock? I work here. I know where it is. Good. Because you just became the only person who can identify my fiancée as the woman who ordered my execution. We hit the exit door and the winter air knifed through my thin uniform. Which means you're a witness. And a target. The parking garage was a concrete mouth that swallowed us whole. A black sedan sat idling in the far corner. Jun-suk opened the back door with courtesy that would have been comical if I weren't numb with shock. Get in. I can't, my apartment, my phone. Your apartment is compromised. Your phone is a tracking device. His eyes were flat in the garage's sodium lights. Get in the car and let me keep you alive. Or go home and die before sunrise. I looked back at the loading dock door. At the restaurant where I'd worked double shifts for 2 years. At the only life I'd ever known. Then I looked at the man who just killed someone without blinking. Who'd pulled me behind a marble column instead of letting me catch a bullet meant for him. I got in the car. Jun-suk slid in beside me and rapped his knuckles on the partition. The driver didn't speak. Didn't turn around. Just put the car in gear and pulled out of the garage, merging smoothly into Manhattan traffic like we were leaving a dinner party, and not a massacre. The silence lasted exactly 45 seconds. Then Jun-suk reached across me and locked the door with a soft click that sounded like a coffin closing. Take off the apron. I blinked at him. What? Your apron. Take it off. His eyes dropped to the blood splatter across the white fabric, and something in his expression sharpened. Now. My hands moved before my brain caught up, untying the strings with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking. The apron came away stiff in places where the blood had already started to dry. I held it in my lap like I didn't know what else to do with it. Jun-suk took it from me, studied it, turned it over with the kind of clinical precision a detective might use at a crime scene. When he found the pocket, the one where I'd shoved the napkin, he reached inside and pulled out a pen. My pen. The ballpoint I'd used to write the warning. You were prepared, he said quietly. You had this in your pocket before the shooting started. Which means you weren't just observing. You were planning. His thumb traced the edge of the pen. So let's start again. When did you know Hae-rin was going to kill me? I told you. 20 minutes before. You told me when you overheard the conversation. I'm asking when you knew. He set the apron aside and turned to face me fully, and in the passing streetlights, his face was all sharp angles and shadows. A woman doesn't carry a pen in her apron pocket, unless she's expecting to write something down. And a waitress doesn't write warnings to customers, unless she's already decided they're worth saving. The car turned onto the FDR drive. The East River stretched black and infinite beyond the windows. I didn't know, I said. Not for certain. Not until I heard her. But you suspected. It wasn't a question. I pressed my hands together to stop the shaking and realized there was still blood under my fingernails. Someone else's life reduced to rust-colored crescents. She was too perfect, I heard myself say. Every time she came to the restaurant she was too perfect. Like she'd rehearsed every gesture, every smile, every touch. I've been serving couples for 2 years. I know what love looks like. And I know what performance looks like. I looked up at him. She was performing. Jun-suk's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or vindication. Go on. Little things. She never ordered for herself. Always waited for you to choose, then agreed. She laughed at your jokes half a second too late, like she was processing whether it was appropriate to laugh. And her hands? I stopped realizing how insane this sounded. When you touched her, she didn't lean in. She held still. Like she was tolerating it. And from that, you concluded she wanted me dead. No. From that, I concluded she didn't love you. The wanting you dead part, that was just confirmation. I met his gaze. I've seen cold relationships. Arranged marriages. Business partnerships disguised as romance. But Hae-rin wasn't just cold. She was empty. Like she was waiting for something to be over. The car accelerated onto the highway, leaving the city behind. Jun-suk pulled out his phone, screen spiderwebbed with cracks but still functional, and typed something quickly. You're observant, he said, not looking up. Dangerously observant. Most people see what they want to see. You see what's actually there. He paused. That's going to keep you alive. Or get you killed. Which one are you betting on? His mouth curved sharp and humorless. I don't bet. I calculate. He pocketed the phone and turned back to me. The penthouse you mentioned. When Hae-rin said it in the coat check, was she speaking to someone, or on the phone? Phone. Definitely phone. She was giving instructions, not having a conversation. And after it was confirmed, Those were her exact words? I closed my eyes and forced myself back into that moment. Past the panic, past the fear. Dopo. Quando è confermato. Il penthouse. The Italian came back in fragments. After. When it's confirmed. The penthouse. When I opened my eyes, Jun-suk was staring at me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. You speak Italian. Barely. Menu Italian. Enough to know wine regions and enough to understand when someone's planning an assassination. He leaned back and for the first time since the shooting he looked almost relaxed. Almost. Anna Winter. Waitress. Linguist. Witness. His eyes locked on mine. Asset. The word landed heavy between us. Not victim. Not liability. Asset. Where are we going? I whispered. Somewhere off the books. Somewhere Hae-rin won't think to look. He glanced at the blood-stained apron still sitting between us. And somewhere I can decide what to do with you. The highway stretched dark ahead. And I realized with cold certainty that my life had become a calculation in someone else's ledger. The only question was whether I'd be written off as a loss or leveraged as a gain. The estate appeared through the trees like something out of a Gothic novel. Stone walls. Iron gates. Windows that reflected nothing but forest and sky. The driver killed the headlights a quarter-mile out, navigating by moonlight alone. And that's when I knew something was wrong. Jun-suk knew it too. His hand moved to his jacket, to the gun, and his whole body went still in that predatory way that meant he was calculating trajectories and exit strategies. The lights, he said quietly. They should be on. The main house sat dark against the winter sky. Not just dark. Empty dark. The kind of darkness that swallows sound. Sir. The driver started. The first bullet took out the windshield. Glass exploded inward and the driver's head snapped back. And suddenly we were spinning, the car careening off the gravel drive and into the trees. My head cracked against the window. The world tilted. Metal screamed as we hit something solid. A tree, a boulder, I couldn't tell. And then everything stopped. Silence. Then the sound of gunfire. Distant but closing in. Out. Now. Jun-suk's door was already open. He grabbed my arm and hauled me across the seat, and I saw blood, his blood, spreading dark across his shoulder. The glass from the restaurant. No new blood. Fresh. The bullet had clipped him. We hit the ground running. The forest swallowed us whole, bare branches clawing at my uniform. Roots trying to trip me with every step. Behind us, men's voices. Russian. Korean. Too many languages for this to be anything but coordinated. Jun-suk stumbled. Caught himself against a tree. His breathing had gone ragged. How bad? I whispered. Manageable. But his hand was pressed to his shoulder and blood was seeping between his fingers. Keep moving. You're bleeding out. I said keep moving. A flashlight beam cut through the trees behind us. Then another. They were spreading out, forming a perimeter. Hunting. I grabbed his arm, the good one, and pulled it over my shoulders, taking his weight. He resisted for half a second, then gave in, and I realized with sick clarity that this was the first time he'd let anyone support him. The first time he'd admitted weakness. There's a service road, he said through gritted teeth. Half a mile north. If we can reach it. Which way is north? He pointed with his gun hand, and we stumbled forward into the dark. The ground was frozen, every step crunching loud enough to give away our position. My uniform, thin, meant for temperature-controlled dining rooms, did nothing against the cold. Jun-suk's breathing was getting worse. Shorter. More labored. Talk to me, I said, because I'd seen enough movies to know you had to keep injured people conscious. Tell me about the estate. Why here? My grandfather's. Built it in 72. Hae-rin didn't know about it. He paused to breathe. Thought she didn't know. How deep does her network go? Deep enough. Another pause. Another ragged breath. She had 2 years to plan this. 2 years to turn my own people against me. His hand tightened on my shoulder. Stop. I froze. Listen. The voices behind us had gone quiet. Too quiet. They're flanking, Jun-suk whispered, moving to cut off the road. He pushed away from me, steadying himself against a tree. You need to run. Get to the service road, flag down a car. Get as far from here as. Absolutely not. This isn't a negotiation. You're right. It's not. I grabbed his arm again, harder this time. You said I was an asset. You said you were going to keep me alive. Well, I'm keeping you alive too. Because if you die out here, Haerin wins. And I didn't survive a massacre just to watch her win. For a long moment he just stared at me. Then something that might have been respect flickered across his face. The service road, he said. Stay low. Stay quiet. And if I tell you to run, you run. We moved through the forest like ghosts. Every step calculated. Every breath measured. The cold bit through my uniform. Blood from Jun-suk's shoulder left a trail I couldn't stop. Behind us, the flashlights swept closer. Then I saw it. Through the trees. A break in the darkness. The service road. Empty and pale in the moonlight. Almost there, I whispered. Jun-suk's weight sagged heavier against me. Anna. Don't you dare pass out on me. Listen, his voice was fading. If something happens. Nothing's going to happen. There's a phone. In my jacket. Left inside pocket. Call the number marked overseer. Tell him. He stopped. Swayed. Tell him the king is dead. Long live the queen. Then his legs gave out and we both went down. I woke up in a room that smelled like antiseptic and old money. Silk sheets. Crown molding. A window that looked out over miles of forest turning gray in the pre-dawn light. For one disoriented second, I thought I dreamed everything. Then I saw the blood under my fingernails and knew it was real. The door opened. A woman in her 60s entered carrying a medical kit. Her expression neutral in the way that suggested she'd seen worse. Much worse. He's asking for you, she said in accented English. Korean maybe. Down the hall. Third door. Jun-suk was sitting up in bed when I found him. His shoulder wrapped in clean bandages. His skin pale but his eyes sharp. Alert. A laptop sat open on his lap. Screen filled with what looked like financial statements. You dragged me half a mile, he said without preamble. The overseer's men found us on the service road. You were still conscious. Still holding pressure on the wound. He closed the laptop. Most people would have run. Most people aren't being hunted by the Korean Mafia. Russian Mafia. Haerin's family connections run through Moscow, not Seoul. He set the laptop aside with his good arm. Sit. I sat in the chair by the window. My uniform was gone, replaced by someone else's clothes, black leggings, an oversized sweater that smelled like cedar. The woman probably. I didn't ask. Your family owes money, Jun-suk said. Not a question. Medical debt. Your mother's treatment. Stage 4, if I'm reading the records correctly. My blood went cold. How do you? I know everything about the people in my orbit. You've been serving my table for 6 months. Did you think I wouldn't run a background check? He leaned forward, wincing slightly. $237,000. That's what you owe. Between the hospital, the specialists, the experimental treatments that didn't work. His eyes were flat in the morning light. That's why you work doubles. Why you live in a studio in Queens. Why you haven't been home to Ohio in 2 years. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't speak. The number sat between us like a verdict. I can make it disappear, he said quietly. One phone call. The debt vanishes. Your credit restored. Your mother's medical records sealed. He paused. In exchange, you help me identify the traitors in my organization. I don't know anything about your organization. You know how to observe. How to see through performance. He pulled out his phone and swiped through photos. Faces I didn't recognize. Men in expensive suits. Women in designer clothes. Haerin spent 2 years poisoning my inner circle. Someone helped her. Multiple someones. I need to know who. The faces blurred together. And you think I can just look at these people and know who's loyal? I think you can watch them. Listen to them. Notice the things no one else notices. He set the phone down. You saw through Hayrin in 6 months of serving her dinner. Imagine what you could do with access to my world. Your world is trying to kill us. My world is trying to kill me. You're just collateral damage. His mouth curved without humor. Unless you become something more valuable than collateral. Outside, the forest was waking up. Birds whined through bare branches. Normal sounds in an abnormal situation. $237,000, I said slowly. For what? Playing spy. Pointing out who seems nervous at your meetings. For staying alive. For having a purpose beyond serving people who don't see you. He leaned back against the pillows. You told me you felt invisible. That you've been serving the elite for 2 years and none of them know your name. Except I knew your name. I knew about the spilled Merlot. I knew you apologized 4 times. His eyes locked on mine. I see you, Anna Winter. The question is whether you're ready to be seen. The debt. My mother's medical bills. The collection calls I'd stopped answering. The night shifts and double shifts and the crushing weight of knowing I'd never pay it off. Not in this lifetime. If I say yes, I heard myself ask, what happens when this is over? When you found your traitors and dealt with Hayrin. Then the debt is paid. And you walk away. He tilted his head. Or you stay. That part's negotiable. And if I say no? Then I get you on a plane to somewhere Hayrin won't think to look. Costa Rica. New Zealand. Somewhere safe. His expression didn't change. And the debt remains. The choice was so clean it felt like a trap. Freedom or safety. Value or invisibility. I thought about my mother in her hospital bed. About the bills that kept coming. About the life I'd been living. Endless, crushing, invisible. I'll need clothes, I said. Real clothes. If I'm going to infiltrate your world, I can't look like a waitress. Jun-suk's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. Done. And I want it in writing. The debt clearance. All of it. Of course. I stood up. Walked to the window. Watched the sun break through the trees and thought about all the ways this could destroy me. One more thing, I said without turning around. When this is over, when we find them, I don't want to know what you do to them. Agreed. I turned back to face him. Then you have a deal. The woman who'd brought the medical kit returned 3 hours later with garment bags and a makeup case that looked like it cost more than my rent. Her name was Mrs. Kong, and she didn't smile, didn't make small talk, just laid everything out on the bed with the efficiency of someone who dressed corpses for viewings. Try these first, she said, then left. I stood in front of the full-length mirror in clothes that had never touched my body before. A black silk blouse that draped like water. Tailored trousers that made my legs look longer, purposeful. Heels that added 3 inches and completely changed my center of gravity. I looked like someone who belonged in boardrooms. Someone who made decisions instead of taking orders. I looked like a stranger. The door opened without knocking. Jun-suk entered. His arm in a sling but his presence filling the room like a change in air pressure. He circled me once, silent, assessing. Better, he said. But the posture is wrong. You're still apologizing with your shoulders. I'm not. You are. Waitresses make themselves small. Unobtrusive. You've spent 2 years training your body to take up less space. He moved behind me, his good hand touching my shoulder blade. Stand like you own the room. I straightened. He pushed my shoulders back further, adjusted my chin up with 2 fingers. There, he said quietly. That's closer. Now walk. I walked across the room. He shook his head. Again. This time, imagine everyone is watching you because they want something you have. Not because you're bringing them their drinks. I tried again. And again. By the 10th attempt, something shifted. The weight distributed differently. The heels became weapons instead of obstacles. Good. He gestured to a leather chair. Sit. I sat. He frowned. You crossed your ankles. That's what polite girls do. What invisible girls do. He pulled up a chair and sat across from me. His posture relaxed but contained. Cross your legs. Take up space. Act like the furniture exists to serve you, not the other way around. The next 3 days became a masterclass in inhabiting someone else's skin. Jun-suk taught me to read micro-expressions, the way someone's pupils dilated when they lied, how hands betrayed nervousness even when faces stayed neutral. He made me memorize names, faces, corporate hierarchies, family connections. He taught me which fork to use at a 10-course dinner and which wine pairs with vengeance. You already know how to observe, he said on the 4th morning, his shoulder healing enough that he discarded the sling. Now you need to learn how to observe while being observed. How to ask questions that sound like conversation. How to make people want to confess things to you. We practiced in the estate's library. He played different roles: loyal lieutenant, ambitious underling, Hayron's planted spy, and I had to identify which one he was portraying based solely on how he held his whiskey glass, how long he maintained eye contact, whether he sat forward or back in his chair. I failed the first dozen times. Then something clicked. You lean back when you're playing the loyal one, I said. You're comfortable, established. But the ambitious one sits forward. He's hungry. And the spy, I studied him. The spy mirrors me, matches my energy, tries to build false rapport. Jun-suk's expression didn't change, but I caught the flash of approval in his eyes. Again, he said. By the end of the week, Mrs. Kong brought a final garment back. Inside was a dress that looked like it cost more than my car. Midnight blue. Backless. The kind of thing that demanded attention. For tomorrow night, Jun-suk said. A small gathering. Low stakes. Consider it your debut. I held the dress up to the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. Sleek hair instead of a ponytail. Makeup that sharpened instead of softened. Clothes that announced presence instead of service. Who am I supposed to be? I asked. Anna Park, he said. My cousin from the West Coast. Family business. Here to learn the trade. He adjusted his cufflinks with practiced ease. And if anyone asks why they haven't heard of you before, tell them it's because your branch of the family prefers discretion. And if they don't believe me, then you smile like you have secrets worth keeping. He moved to the door, then paused. Anna, I turned. You asked me once what happens when this is over. When we've found the traitors. His eyes were dark in the afternoon light. The truth is, I don't know. Because the woman in that dress isn't the same woman who served my table. And I'm not certain she'll want to go back to being invisible. The door closed behind him, and I stood alone with my reflection, wondering if he was right. Wondering if somewhere between the massacre and the makeover, I'd stopped being Anna Winter the waitress and started becoming someone else entirely. Someone dangerous. The message came at 3 a.m., delivered by a courier who looked like he'd walked through hell to get there. Mrs. Kong woke me with a knock that was more warning than request, and I found Jun-suk in the library, still dressed from the previous night's gathering, reading something on heavy cardstock that made his jaw tighten. She's bold, he said without looking up. I'll give her that. I moved closer. The card was cream-colored, embossed with gold lettering. Formal. Elegant. An invitation to a funeral. In loving memory of Park Jun-suk. Join us as we celebrate his life and legacy. The Obsidian Tower. Tomorrow evening. 7 p.m. Black tie. Below the text in handwritten script. Your presence has been missed. Hey. She's holding a memorial, I said slowly. For you. While you're still alive. Not just a memorial. A consolidation. He set the invitation down and pulled up his laptop, fingers moving across the keys with violent precision. She's calling in every syndicate head, every business partner, every politician in my pocket. She's using my death to claim my empire. The screen filled with names, photographs, corporate structures. I recognized some of them from my training: the shipping magnate from Busan, the real estate developer with ties to City Hall, the banker who moved money through offshore accounts like water. How many of them know you're alive? I asked. None. That's the point. He zoomed in on a photograph of the Obsidian Tower. All glass and steel piercing the Manhattan skyline. The memorial is theater. She'll give a speech about my legacy, about honoring my vision, about stepping into my role with the blessing of the family. His eyes were cold, and every person in that room will believe it, because they saw the news coverage, the shooting, the chaos, the body count. But there was no body. Details. The Park family has enough influence to bury details. Literally. He closed the laptop. By tomorrow night, she'll have consolidated enough power that even if I resurface, half of them will be too invested in her regime to switch sides. I sank into the chair across from him. Through the windows, dawn was starting to break, turning the frost on the trees into diamonds. So what do? We accept her invitation. He picked up the card again, studying it like it was a bomb he needed to defuse. She's expecting ghosts. We'll give her one. You can't just walk in there. She'll have security, loyalists, people who want you dead for real this time. I won't be walking in. His eyes cut to me. You will. The words landed like a physical blow. What? Anna Park, my long-lost cousin from the West Coast, paying her respects to her deceased family member. Grieving. Appropriate. Unremarkable. He leaned forward. You've spent the last week learning how to infiltrate my world. This is your final exam. You want me to go to your memorial. Alone. Surrounded by people who helped kill you. I want you to be my eyes and ears. To identify who's truly loyal to Hayrin and who's just hedging their bets. To see who knew about the hit before it happened. He pulled out his phone and showed me a schematic of the Obsidian Tower. The memorial will be on the 68th floor. My private event space. You'll arrive early, play the grieving cousin and observe. Take note of who stands too close to Hayrin, who avoids her, who seems surprised versus who seems relieved. And then what? I just file a report and leave. And then you go to the bathroom. Tent stall from the entrance. There's a service panel behind the mirror. Inside is a communication device. You relay what you've learned, and I make my entrance. My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against my thighs. She's going to recognize me. I served her table for 6 months. You served her table as a waitress in a uniform with your hair in a ponytail. No makeup, invisible. He gestured at my current appearance. The tailored clothes, the styled hair, the woman who'd learned to take up space. You're not that person anymore. And besides, his mouth curved. People like Hayrin don't see the help. She looked through you every time you poured her wine. She won't recognize you now that you're dressed like you belong. Outside, a car pulled up the drive. More security. More preparation for whatever came next. 24 hours, Jun-suk said quietly. That's all we have. After tomorrow night, she'll be untouchable. The syndicate will have accepted her. The family will have crowned her. And you and I will be nothing but loose ends she can afford to tie off at her leisure. I thought about the woman in white who'd walked out of a massacre. About the phone call in the coat check. About the red laser dot that had started all of this. I need a different dress, I said. That midnight blue is too memorable. I need something that disappears. Jun-suk's smile was sharp as a blade. Mrs. Kong is already working on it. The dress arrived at noon in a garment bag that felt too light to contain something so deliberately weaponized. White silk. Floor length. Cut with brutal simplicity that looked almost bridal. When I held it up to the mirror, my stomach dropped. This is Hayrin's silhouette, I said. Mrs. Kong adjusted the shoulders without looking at my face. Exactly. Jun-suk appeared in the doorway like he'd been waiting for this moment. His shoulder had healed enough that he moved without hesitation, predatory and precise. He studied me in the white dress with the kind of focus a jeweler might use examining a diamond for flaws. Her height? He asked Mrs. Kong. 5'7" in heels. Anna is 5'6". The alterations account for it. Hair. Center part. Low chignon. The stylist arrives in an hour. He circled me once and I felt like prey being assessed. The memorial will have low lighting. Candles. Ambience. From a distance in that dress with your hair styled like hers. He stopped in front of me. You'll look like a ghost. Like she's seeing her own reflection. I thought I was supposed to disappear, I said. Blend in. Observe. That was before I realized what we actually have. His eyes were dark, calculating. Heron thinks she's untouchable. That she's won. That I'm dead and buried and she can crown herself queen without consequence. He reached out and adjusted the neckline of the dress, his fingers cold against my collarbone. So we're going to give her a reminder. That queens can be replaced. That thrones are never secure. That the woman in white at the memorial might not be who she thinks it is. My mouth went dry. You want me to pretend to be her? Not pretend. Echo. Haunt. He stepped back. You'll arrive after she does. Enter from the private elevator. The one only family uses. Walk through the memorial like you belong there. Like you've always belonged there. And watch her realize that someone else can wear her costume just as well as she can. This isn't reconnaissance anymore. No. It's psychological warfare. His expression didn't change. She built her power on erasing me. On stepping into the vacuum I left behind. So we show her that vacuums can be filled by anyone. That she's not irreplaceable. That her position is just a role. And roles can be recast. The stylist arrived with a case full of tools that looked more like surgical instruments than beauty supplies. She worked in silence, transforming my hair into Heyrin's signature style. Severe, elegant, controlled. Mrs. Kong applied makeup with the precision of a forger replicating a masterpiece. Foundation 2 shades lighter than my skin. Lips the color of blood. Eyes lined sharp enough to cut. When they finished, I didn't recognize myself. The woman in the mirror looked like she'd been carved from ice and wrapped in silk. Beautiful. Untouchable. Dangerous. Perfect, Jun-suk said from behind me. Now walk. I walked across the room. The dress moved like water, catching light, holding attention. In the mirror I saw what he saw. Not Anna Winter the waitress, not even Anna Park the cousin. Someone else entirely. A replacement. A warning. A threat. She's going to know, I said quietly. The moment I walk in, she's going to know this is a trap. Good. Fear makes people sloppy. He handed me a small earpiece, nearly invisible. You'll have audio the entire time. I'll be listening. And when the moment is right, when she's off balance and vulnerable, you'll lead her to the balcony. The balcony? Where I'll be waiting. His smile was all teeth. She tried to kill me with an audience. It's only fair I return the favor. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Mrs. Kong pressed a small clutch into them, white, matching the dress. Inside was nothing but a phone and a compact mirror. Tools of the trade for the woman I was pretending to be. What if she has security? What if they stop me before I even get to the elevator? Then you tell them the truth. Jun-suk adjusted his cufflinks with practiced ease. That you're Anna Park. That you're here to pay your respects to family. That you wanted to see the woman who replaced him. He met my eyes in the mirror. And if they still try to stop you, you remind them that Park family members don't take orders from hired guns. The car was waiting outside, black and anonymous. Jun-suk walked me to it, his hand resting briefly on the small of my back. Proprietorial, possessive, the way someone might touch a weapon they're about to deploy. Anna, he said as I reached for the door handle, when this is over, when you're standing on that balcony with her, remember what she tried to take from you. The choice to stay invisible. The illusion of safety. His voice dropped. She made you a target. Now you're making her a victim. I got in the car. The door closed. Through the tinted windows I watched the estate recede into the distance. And I realized with crystalline clarity that I wasn't going to a memorial. I was going to an execution. And I was dressed like the bride. The Obsidian Tower's private elevator opened directly onto the 68th floor. And for a moment, I couldn't breathe. The space had been transformed into a cathedral of grief. Black candles. White lilies. Photographs of Jun-suk arranged like stations of the cross. Young and severe in some, calculating and dangerous in others. The crowd moved through it like mourners at a wake. Their designer black blending into shadows. And at the center of it all, standing beside a portrait that made him look like a saint, was Rin. She wore black this time. Appropriate. Widow's weeds cut by Chanel. Her hair swept up, diamond earrings catching candlelight like tears. She was speaking to someone, the shipping magnate from Busan. Her hand resting on his arm with practiced intimacy. Consolidating. Claiming. Owning. I stepped into the room and felt every instinct scream at me to run. But I'd learned to move like I belonged, so I walked deeper into the memorial with my head high and the white dress drawing eyes like a wound. The first person to notice was the banker. His champagne glass stopped halfway to his mouth, his eyes tracking me with the kind of confusion that borders on fear. Then the real estate developer. Then a woman I didn't recognize whispered something urgent in Korean to the man beside her. The crowd parted. Not consciously. Not deliberately. But I could feel the space opening around me like water around a shark, and I knew Jun-suk had been right about the dress. About the silhouette. About what it meant to wear white to someone's memorial. Rin turned. Saw me. And her face went absolutely still. For 3 heartbeats she just stared. Then her lips curved into something that might have been a smile if smiles could kill. She excused herself from the shipping magnate and crossed the room with measured steps, each one a declaration of ownership. I don't believe we've met, she said in English, her accent deliberately soft, unthreatening. I'm Rin. I was, a delicate pause. I was Jun-suk's fiancée. Anna Park, I said, and watched her pupils dilate slightly at the family name. His cousin. West Coast branch. I didn't know he had family in California. The smile stayed fixed, but her eyes were doing rapid calculations. He never mentioned you. He never mentioned a lot of things. I let my gaze drift to the portrait behind her. Clearly, something flickered across her expression, irritation maybe or suspicion, but she recovered smoothly. It's unusual to wear white to a memorial. In our culture. In my culture, white is for honoring the dead. I met her eyes. And for replacing what's been lost. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Around us, conversations had stopped. People were watching now, sensing blood in the water. Rin's smile sharpened. You look familiar. Have we met before? This was the moment. The knife's edge between exposure and success. I could feel Jun-suk's voice in my earpiece. Silent but present, waiting to see if I'd break. I don't think so, I said carefully. I would have remembered. No. She stepped closer, her perfume expensive and suffocating. I'm certain I've seen you before. Your face. She stopped, tilted her head. And I watched the exact moment recognition bloomed. The restaurant. The obsidian room. You were the waitress. The words hung between us like a verdict. I said quietly. Right up until you tried to kill him. Right up until I heard you order the hit in the coat check. Right up until your fiancé decided I was more valuable alive than dead. Her hand moved fast, reaching for something in her clutch, a weapon or a phone, but I was faster. Mrs. Kong had taught me that too. I caught her wrist and held it, my grip iron despite the silk gloves. He wants to see you, I said loud enough that the nearest mourners could hear. On the balcony. One last conversation. For old time's sake. He's dead, Rin hissed, trying to pull away. You're insane. Security is currently watching the live feed from the night of the shooting. Jun-suk's voice came through my earpiece, and I repeated his words verbatim. The one that shows you checking your watch 30 seconds before the first bullet. The one that shows you walking out while people were dying. The one that proves you ordered the execution of the head of the Park family. I leaned in close. He's not dead. But your Rain is. The crowd had gone silent. Every eye on us. Every ear straining. Rin's face transformed from composed to feral in the space of a breath. You have no idea what you've done. Who I have behind me. The people in this room. Are about to choose sides, I finished. So let's give them a show. I released her wrist and turned toward the balcony doors, and I could feel her behind me, Calculating, desperate, trapped. The white dress caught the candlelight as I walked, and I knew what they saw. Not a waitress. Not even a cousin. A replacement queen walking to her coronation. The balcony doors opened. Manhattan spread below us, all lights and cold air. And standing in the shadows, very much alive, was Park Jun-suk. Hae-rin's scream was swallowed by the wind. Jun-suk caught her before she could run, his hand closing around her throat with the casual efficiency of someone who'd done this before. The balcony was empty except for the three of us and the city sprawling 68 stories below, indifferent to whatever violence played out in its shadow. "You look surprised," he said, his voice carrying that same granite quality from the obsidian room. "Did you really think a single shooter could end me? That I wouldn't have contingencies?" He glanced at me over Hae-rin's shoulder. "That I wouldn't have someone watching?" Inside, through the glass doors, I could see the memorial transforming. Security, Jun-suk's real security, the ones who'd been waiting for this moment, had moved into position. The overseer stood at the entrance, his presence alone enough to freeze the crowd. On the screens that had been displaying Jun-suk's photographs, new footage played. Hae-rin in the coat check. Hae-rin checking her watch. Hae-rin walking out of the massacre without a backward glance. The evidence was irrefutable and damning. 2 years, Jun-suk said, forcing Hae-rin to look at him. 2 years you spent in my bed, learning my secrets, poisoning my organization. Tell me, was any of it real? Or was it always just a long game for Moscow? She spat at him. He didn't flinch, just tightened his grip until she gasped. "That's what I thought." He released her and she stumbled back against the railing. "Anna, come here." I moved to his side. Through the glass, I could see the crowd parting as the overseer gestured to specific people. The bartender from the obsidian room, his hands bound. 2 of the fake servers. A woman I recognized from the photos. One of Jun-suk's lieutenants who'd been marked as potentially compromised. They were being led to a private elevator, and I didn't need to ask where they were going. "You wanted to crown yourself queen," Jun-suk said to Hae-rin. "To step into the vacuum and claim everything I'd built. But kingdoms aren't inherited through assassination. They're inherited through legitimacy, through blood, through partnership." He looked at me. "Through trust." Inside, the overseer raised his hand. The signal. Jun-suk nodded once, and I watched as the marked traitors disappeared into the elevator. The doors closed. The memorial continued as if nothing had happened, but the atmosphere had shifted. Fear had replaced grief. Certainty had replaced confusion. "You can't do this," Hae-rin whispered. "My family, Moscow, will." "Moscow will do nothing," Jun-suk said. "Because Moscow doesn't start wars over failed investments. And that's all you ever were. An investment that didn't pay out." He turned his back on her, dismissing her the way you might dismiss a servant. "Take her to holding. Let her family know they can retrieve what's left when I'm finished." 2 security guards materialized from the shadows. Hae-rin struggled, but they were professionals, and she was already broken. As they dragged her past me, she locked eyes with me one final time. "You think you've won," she said. "But you're just another waitress playing dress-up. He'll discard you the moment you're no longer useful." I thought about the woman I'd been 2 weeks ago. Invisible. Drowning in debt. Serving people who never learned her name. Then I thought about the woman I'd become. The one in the white dress who'd walked into a room full of predators and emerged victorious. "Maybe," I said. "But at least I'll have been useful. You were just decorative." The guards pulled her away. Her screams echoed through the tower and then cut off abruptly when the elevator doors closed. Jun-suk opened the balcony doors, and we stepped back into the memorial together. The crowd turned as one, and I felt the weight of their attention, no longer confused or skeptical but calculating. Reassessing. The woman in white beside their resurrected king wasn't a ghost. She was a declaration. The overseer approached and bowed slightly, first to Jun-suk, then to me. "Sir. Mississippi Park. The cleanup is underway. The family heads are requesting an audience." "Tomorrow," Jun-suk said. Tonight we mourn what was lost. Tomorrow we rebuild what remains. He gestured to the crowd. Send them home. With a reminder that loyalty is rewarded. And betrayal. He let the sentence hang. The overseer understood. Everyone understood. As the memorial emptied, I stood beside Junsuk and watched the city through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Manhattan glittered below us, oblivious and eternal. Somewhere in this building traitors were being dealt with. Somewhere in the city, my mother's medical debt was being erased. Somewhere in the past, Anna Winter the waitress had ceased to exist. You should know, Junsuk said quietly. The deal we made, the debt clearance, the fresh start, it's done. You can walk away now. Tonight. No obligations. No strings. I didn't move. Didn't look away from the city. I asked. Or you stay. Not as an asset. Not as a tool. He turned to face me. As a partner. Someone who sees the performance. Someone who watches the shadows. Someone who stands where everyone can see her and knows exactly what she's worth. I thought about invisibility, about safety, about the life I could reclaim if I just walked out the door. Then I thought about power, about the look in Hayren's eyes when she realized she'd been replaced, about standing in a white dress and watching an empire bow. I want it in writing, I said. Junsuk smiled. Of course. And my own office. Not some corner. A real one. Done. And I don't take orders. We negotiate. Partners. Agreed. He extended his hand. Welcome to the throne, Anna Park. I took his hand. Through the windows the city sprawled infinite and hungry. And I realized I was hungry too. Not for food. Not for safety. For the thing I'd been denied my entire life. Recognition. I'd come to this city invisible. I'd leave it as a queen. Long live the king. And long live the woman who made sure he survived. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It is as crazier and more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.